Good morning, everyone.
Yes, good morning to you and good afternoon, Ramon.
Good afternoon, Ramon. Good afternoon, Anand. Good
Hello, good
afternoon, everyone.
afternoon. Good afternoon and good evening and good morning to everyone.
Yes, whoever is there watching. So today we have again, of course, Miss Maria to discuss and inform us more about ISO 45001.
Thank you, Anna and Ramon, for inviting me, ladies and gentlemen. This is a specialist session on 45,001, which is occupational health and safety. And we'll be addressing some questions that customers in the Philippines, Hong Kong, Malaysia, generally speaking, our Asian markets have been asking around the standards and its importance. So thank you for inviting me, Anna, Ramon again. Thank you for everyone. Thank you everyone for joining. So Anna and Ramon, may I ask you to honestly explain why you have selected the topic? Mm, I understand that the standard has started being very important in your territories. Isn't is it right?
Yes. Yeah. Recently, actually, when we started with the 9001, there's always 45,000 and 14,000 that is being asked or requested from us, from every customers that we have. And especially now, with the pandemic that happened, so there are a lot of customers looking into the standard with regards to occupational health and safety. Now, among those companies are those in the construction industry, medical industry, so and as well as other industry. So it's high time that we also focus on and um, discuss about all the benefits and why it is important, and is it compulsory for companies to be ISO certified for 45,001, or is it just for the management? So that we can discuss more through Maria. And Juan, you would
Absolutely.
like to add?
No, I think Anna said it all. Later on, probably there will be some questions that I have from my previous prospects and customers. I'll share them to you later on. Maybe Maria can give us some background about the 45.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ramon. Uh, 45,001, which is occupational health and safety, is the first truly international standard on health and safety worldwide. Uh, Organizations used to work with OSHA's 18,001, we all know that, but honestly, it wasn't an international standard. It was only internationally recognized. It was a British standard, good enough. However, uh, the the International Labour Organization published a study a few years ago, according to which uh, nearly 3 million people lose their lives each year in accidents, in work-related accidents, or because of work-induced illnesses and diseases. So that's an impressive figure. Nearly 400 million get affected in a non-lethal way. So this has a huge cost to people, personal lives, communities, businesses, etc. The same organizations did a study again, which shows that 99%, please remember that figure, 99% of those accidents, lethal or not, can actually be prevented. So uh, the ISO technical committees started working on a truly international standard, and in 2018 they came up and published 45,001, and it aims to help organization reduce those tremendously nefast figures I've just mentioned. 45001 is currently the best set of best practices worldwide organizations can use to improve the operations, to improve health and safety, including mental health. We all know that after the pandemic, mental health became it has always been an issue, but it became obvious during the pandemic. It causes quite a lot of absenteeism, quite a lot of health issues. It has a huge cost to organizations. So even mental health is now considered within the standard. So it's a global set of rules, good practice rules that help organizations work much better. So 45,001 is a very complex and now well received standard. It created quite a lot of expectations in organizations that started implementing it and previously migrating their OSA systems into 45,001 systems have already seen the benefits. Let's say among the benefits in the first place, we can list the return on the investment. Interestingly enough, with ISO 45001, it is quite easier to calculate, to estimate the potential return on the investment, which is sometimes slightly difficult with other standards, but this one is not, does allow us to have a clear figure of what we will benefit from even before starting the implementation. Uh, Anything else, Ramon and Anna, you might like me to mention with regards to 45,001 introduction?
Um,
Oh, thank
uh,
you for that introduction,
yeah.
Maria. A lot of questions that I normally receive is that how long does it take to implement, the 45,001, including the certification? Is it a long period time?
Well, Ramon, it really depends. Please excuse me. So 45,001 is a complex standard. All ISO standards are, however, it depends on how big the company is, uh, what the company's culture would be, how advanced their internal procedures and the safety plans might be, etc. There are quite a lot of factors to be considered when we estimate the timetable. Now, the truth is that with MSM and our specialist methodology, we can substantially reduce the time needed for the implementation. However, we shouldn't commit to anything. I know that it is very difficult to explain to customers and very difficult to sell to our attendees, but maybe if organizations talk to us, we can assess and then advise. Because once you, ladies and gentlemen, have a talk with us as experts, you'll be able to be assessed, and we'll be able to give you a very accurate timetable. Uh, Saying this, when you talk to us, that's free of charge, and on top of that, we'll extend this information to you, and you might actually be very surprised when it comes to A, timetable, and B, investment you need to make. So don't discard implementing an ISO standard, including 45,001, only because you assume that A, it takes too long, B, it costs too much, and C, you actually don't have the resources to do it. Talk to us. I'm quite sure you're very likely to change your mind after conversation with Ramon, Anna, and other colleagues in the area.
Yes, it's important to talk to a consultant first so we can also gauge the size of your company, the type of operations, the scope of business that you have, and to know that ISO 45001 is also site specific. So we have to explain all these things. And part of that, I want Maria to discuss the difference between implementation and certification because this will be part of the timeline that how long it will take for a company to implement a 45,001 standard.
That's another good question, Anna. Thank you very much. Many organizations do not understand that there are two stages in doing ISO standards. So there is this first stage, which is the implementation, and people like IMSM come to you. We assess you, we help you implement the system, we work with you on your processes, if needed, any procedures, we assess, we advise, we put it all together. This is the first stage. And then, when your organization is prepared, a different organization will be invited. This is an independent body which adapts to your particular needs, and we can also advise on which certification body might be the best partner for you. They can come in, they review what has been done, how it has been done from a very independent point of view, assess and advise on whether it is all good and the certification should be issued, or you need to uh, amend or work further on some aspects within, let's say, between few weeks and up to 3 months time, and then they'll come back and review your processes, and then you'll be hopefully certified. So between implementation and certification, there is quite a big difference. And organizations that implement your system shouldn't also certify it. This is why we work with partners, and we advise on which partner you might need to work with just to make sure you're fully covered. Anna and Ramon, may I ask you just to mute yourselves when I'm talking? Basically, I can hear additional thank you, avoiding just to avoid the additional noises. It happens from time to time. We all know it. So it makes it easy for me. Sorry, guys. Uh, this is about implementation and certification, two independent processes. The organizations that want it all together, that's okay. So they come to us and say, can you please implement and certify? And we always respond, we can implement and we're going to help you with the certification. The same way that other organizations go with certification bodies and ask them about implementation and certification. Then the certification bodies tell them that they're happy to certify and maybe will help them to find an implementation organization. So no matter how organizations approach the process, in first implementation, then certification, or first asking about, inquiring about certification to go for implementation first, we have a two-stage process with ISO standards. Both stages are independent. Uh, can I have another question, please? I know. Oh, uh, Anna kind of asked it at the beginning, is an ISO standard compulsory, in this case 45001? Anna, may I ask your question and before answering this one? Uh, Do your customers inquire about how compulsory the standards are?
Not really compulsory. Most of our customers or those inquiring about 45,001 is either addressing their customers as well. So it's either customer requirement or, but for local compliance, is very minimal for local
Yeah,
compliance. It's not compulsory at all, but there is a need. They can see that there is a need that they have to implement 45,000 as well.
thank you, Anna. Indeed, ISO standards haven't been designed to be compulsory. I mean, when designed by the ISO as an organization, the International Organization for Standardization, these standards are best practice, and organizations may decide to adopt those or not to adopt them. Now, we may find some situations where we actually require to have them. As Anna says, this is because of some regulatory requirements or contractual requirements. So, if organizations are required to have those, it is not because the ISO as an organization has designed them to be compulsory, but because their customers or local authorities, national bodies, governments, etc., may require the standards as part of a tender. What happens in Europe mostly is that when we have here public or private tenders, holding an ISO standard, specific ISO standards, is an obvious requirement. In the States, in Philippines, Hong Kong, those are not that clearly identified on the tender papers. This is why organizations that don't hold standards may not clearly perceive the reason their applications haven't been progressed at all. Here in Europe, it's clear you either compliant, you can certify 45,001, you are holder of the certificate, or you can't bid for the tender. In other territories, such as the States, Asian markets, it is not a tender requirement. However, organizations that uh, do not hold the certificate are more likely not to be progressed with the tender. Do we have, sorry,
Yeah, to
Anna?
add, yeah, to add, not necessarily compulsory here in the Philippines, but then it is already given that it's a standard compliance. It's
Yeah,
our local standard compliance that you have to address the safety of your employees. And of course, most business owners would also like to not only cover the safety, health and safety of their employees, but also for the whole company to be at par or in this line of addressing the health and
absolutely.
safety issues of the
Absolutely.
community.
This is quite an interesting observation as well. On top of that, we know that organizations holding ISO 45001, and this is information you can verify on the official website of the organization, actually benefit from discounts on their insurance policies,
Yeah.
and then they can also benefit from the opportunity to demonstrate they're operating according to best practice. This is really a good opportunity. So I'm back to my previous point with the return on the investment. I know that it's not as easy as I'm going to explain it, so it's much more sophisticated and complicated. But again, you can quite calculate your return on the investment based on your costs in absenteeism, work injuries, mental health issue, other illnesses and diseases, staff rotation, and hiring. All these elements, including the insurance policies and their costs, all these elements included, if you consider them all together, will help you identify, estimate, apologies, your potential return on the investment, plus avoiding any kind of fines, etc., because organizations are more likely to effectively prevent the lack of compliance with requirements that may uh, lead to financial fines or other adverse situations. So 45,001 is a good standard for organizations that have their doubts about the return on the investment. I think that I see again the question on the how long it takes. We've already answered it. How does the ISO work? We have quite a lot of questions today, don't we? I'm so pleased people are watching us live on social media. Well, Ramon now is going to smile widely because I'm going to say his favorite sentence, the one I always launch when asked something like that, and which is that the principle behind ISO standards is very simple: do what you say and say what you do. And although it sounds quite simple, and indeed it is, it works. It works because it is supported with the so-called Deming cycle. 4 steps: plan on what is needed to be done and how to do it. Do it as planned. Check, double check, and triple check what has been done. And in case you detect any deviations or any opportunities for improvement, act upon those. How? Again, via planning, doing what has been planned, checking again, and acting. Uh, we also like to represent the Deming cycle with the concept of leadership in the middle, because Deming cycle and the simple principle behind work only if top management gets involved. And top management is essential in 45,001, as in all other standards. And under 45,001, they have a few more responsibilities added, such as talking to, ensuring that employees are consulted or their representatives, subcontractors, etc., etc. So this is a very well designed standard which helps organizations identify and quickly what is needed to be done. And I like it very much because it even considers talking to employees. Logical, isn't it? Those people are the ones who work day in, day out for you, for all of us. They know what's going on. They're familiar with any potential risks and opportunities, and they're the right people to tell you what may be going wrong or what may be really good to be implemented, because they literally spend most of the day working a day in your facilities, working for you, working with you, working with your customers, working with your stakeholders, generally speaking. Don't miss the opportunity to make sure that your employees, your workers, tell you what's good, what's not that good, and make their suggestions. That's an opportunity. Caroline? Oh, Ramon, Anna, can you please tell us which standards combine in your experience with 45001? What exactly customers ask for when asking for an integrated system?
Roman, you want to go first?
Yeah, in my experience here, mostly in the Philippines, the 45,001 is normally combined with those who once or already have ISO 9001. I think they find it very useful in terms of combining these two standards.
Yeah, and to add, depending on the industry, most of my clients that I have encountered implement both 9,001, 45,001, especially on the security agencies. Now, for construction industry, it's the three standards actually, either integrated or not, or standalone. 9,001 goes well with 45,000 and 14,001. And this is so not only because of as a requirement, but it also add credit points when they apply for permits, like from their Philippine Construction Association Board. They have to get a license. And once you have these three standards, that's 50 credit points already for them, for the company. So one standard is 50 credit points already, and that's good. And not just adding, knowing the importance of being ISO certified, but also it adapts to all the requirements that they need to comply when applying for licenses. So
That's correct. Depending on the industrial sector, 45,001 may be combined as integrated or standalone with 9,001, 14,001 goes with that one. So construction, as Anna says, is a very good example. All three of them because of insurance, because of credit points, etc. We have seen lately that technological companies that implement 27,001 go for 45,001, which raised some brows slightly, but there is an explanation. At the beginning, I mentioned mental health. In technological companies, working conditions are critical, so 45,001 help them improve these critical working conditions with regards to mental health, absenteeism, burnout, equal opportunities. Because when you work in such very fast-paced environments, organizations need to quickly identify any potential issues to prevent staff from leaving or getting sick or whatever, because um, these companies tend to be, some of them, startups, 5 people. If one of those gets indisposed, critical operations may be compromised. So lately we've seen technological companies going with 45,001 for several reasons. I think that we have time for one more question, and I can see that there is a question about OSHAs again. Shall I take this one
yes,
and
yes, I
go?
think
Yeah.
this is very
Okay.
important as well.
Yeah. Okay, as I say, ALSA's 18001 was a British standard, and it was well designed quite a few years ago, and used worldwide to provide guarantees that organizations work well. However, in 2018, we got 45001, and organizations were given a transition period so they could switch from 18,001 to 45,001. For 18,001 is no longer acceptable as a certification in occupational health and safety because we have 45,001. It's not the same. Uh, they're, they're quite similar, however, there are a few important differences. Let's say that in the first place, ALSAS 18 focused on the organization internally, its internal risks and issues. Compared to an ISO standard, this is limited because ISO standards, including this one, focus on the organizational environment. Everything, every organization, individual that may affect us, or every organization or individual that we may affect, as well as risks and opportunities, both, which wasn't the case in OSAS. And another difference is that OSAS was quite static, literally checklists. An ISO standard is a dynamic management system, not a procedural checklist. We work with processes in ISO 45001, which allows us to quickly identify any potential glitches instead of just going on static checklist and procedures. We articulate processes that can quickly evolve when needed. So they're pretty similar. However, 45,001 is, let's say, a very evolved management system when compared to OSHA's 18,001.
Okay.
Do we have any other questions, Caroline? Ladies and gentlemen, Caroline from our marketing management is behind the scenes, and
Yeah.
she helps us with questions we receive live today.
No, there's no more questions. That's it. You've had quite a few come through today, which is great to see.
Bye. So, Anna, Ramon, anything you might like to add?
Just to recap the benefits of ISO 45001, aside from having improved employee safety, boost stakeholders' confidence, increase in productivity, lower insurance costs, foster management involvement and accountability, reduce risk, identify opportunities, stand out as an industry leader, and gain competitive edge. Engagement of the employees in safety as well is very important, and shift from reactive and being proactive, both the employers and the employees, and also all their stakeholders, and demonstrate commitment to safety. And I think
Absolutely.
this is also being mentioned by Department of Tourism with regards to ISO 45001. They came up with an article about it, and it's very important to mention as well.
I always like to say that there are as many reasons to implement and certify it as organizations. So uh, please talk to our area managers. As an assessor, I promise if you need further information, I'll join our area managers and you can ask me further questions. So, ladies and gentlemen, don't be shy, talk to us. Anne, Ramon, thank you again for inviting me. Next week we are back to 27,001 information
Yeah, the
security,
part
aren't
two of
we?
Oh
27,001.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yeah. I think we need that second session. There are lots of questions coming in still. So I think that would be nice, really nice that we will have that second session.
So
Yeah,
I'll
that's the
see you
part
next
two.
week with the information security. Ladies and gentlemen, please feel free to join us again. And let's say thank you to everyone.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Caroline.
Thank you,
Can you
Thank you,
everyone.
please
Caroline
take
and
over?
Ian. Thank you,
Bye.
Maureen. As
Bye
Thank you.
always.
bye.